Hey everyone, I'm the Canadian lad, and I just watched the third episode of Loki at 0.25x speed. Now some of you might say this episode was a bit slower or didn't really advance the plot that much. Well, while that's true, but I'm gonna explain to you why today's episode was the most important so far. Now if you've watched the episode already, you know that 90% of today's episode was just character development and dialogue, so I couldn't really find hidden details in those scenes. But there were some fighting scenes where I found some cool Easter eggs and details, so please forgive me if I disappoint you with the details that I found, but I guarantee you watching this video till the end will not be a waste of time. I take that responsibility. But first, if you could spare me exactly 1 minute, I'd like to thank Harry's for sponsoring this video. Harry's is a personal care brand that delivers a close, comfortable shave for as low as $2 per blade refill. Well, I personally hate how expensive razors can cost me over time, and I find myself replacing them so often. They become blunt so quickly and the cost really adds up. I like to detail the edges of my beard sometimes with a razor for a sharper contour, and I found Harry's razors work really well with precision. The shave gel that you'll receive in the trial set hydrates your skin, leaving it nice and smooth, and it's great for sensitive skin since it contains ingredients like aloe and hyaluronic acid. The razor itself has a good weight to it and doesn't slip out of my hands like some other razors, and they get delivered right to your door, and you can sign up with or without a subscription. I also love that Harry's gives 1% of their global sales to non-profit organizations who provide mental health care for those in need. If you want to get your own trial set to test it out, it's only $3 when you visit harrys.com/CanadianLand. The trial set will include a 5-blade razor, weighted handle, blade cover, and foaming shave gel, and their blade refills cost as low as $2 per blade. They also offer 100% money-back guarantee. So what are you waiting for? Get your trial set for only $3. You deserve a better shave. Now this episode begins with a song called Demons by Hayley Kiyoko. This song is really different in terms of the MCU standard, and it immediately catches your attention. Now I didn't hear the song before, so I googled it, and guess what I found? The lyrics literally describe both Sylvie and Loki. It goes like, "Please forgive me, I've got demons in my head," and then it says, "Trying to eat me, trying to feed me lies until I'm dead." Now the first line represents Sylvie, who can pretty much get inside anyone's head, and the second line describes Loki perfectly, who only ever does one thing, and that is feeding other people lies. And notice the way this song is synced with this episode is a detail in and of itself. We hear all the lines of this song up until it says, "Please forgive me, I've got demons in my head." That's when the song starts to fade out. So this line fading out exactly that moment indicates that there are demons in C20's head. This Easter egg was also sent to me through email, so I'm glad other people are noticing it. Now this opening scene was very confusing at first. I knew this is Sylvie and this is C20, but still I couldn't understand what's really going on until this. So basically what's happening here is kinda like Inception, but instead of planting an idea on your head, it's extracting a memory from your head. To make it more simpler, Sylvie needed to know some information from C20 regarding the timekeepers. Now to make sure she's speaking the truth and complying, Sylvie kinda takes her back to one of her memories, and it's so vivid that it feels real. But as soon as she starts to realize it's not real, Sylvie resets the scene and suddenly it's nighttime, similar to what Wanda did with the Vision whenever he would question the fake reality. Then the episode picks up from exactly where we left off in episode 2. Even though in the last episode I thought Loki and Sylvie might be escaping somewhere else, but they actually came back to the TVA. Now Sylvie came here to overthrow the TVA. That's her only goal here so far, but she immediately realizes that her magic doesn't work here. Now this actually surprises me. For someone who knows so much about the TVA and the timekeepers, how come she doesn't know that her magic wouldn't work here? So let me know what you lads think about this. Loki enters the TVA and quickly gets his daggers back. I love the continuity here, because in the previous episode we saw Hunter B-15 specifically keeping Loki's weapons here. Loki then follows Sylvie and they end up fighting each other, but none of them really wants to kill the other. Then enters Judge Renslayer, who commands both of them to stop, but Sylvie says if you come any closer I'll kill him, and Renslayer simply said go ahead. It's because she doesn't care whether this Loki variant survives or not. In fact, she wanted him erased from the timeline in the first episode itself. Loki then steals the Tempad, which is a device that we've seen previously that you need in order to travel through multiple timelines. Now to escape from Renslayer, Loki randomly sends him and Sylvie to Lamentis 1. Lamentis 1 is a moon that is about to collide with the planet, so this is another apocalypse that Sylvie had saved on the Tempad. She says out of all the apocalypses that she saved, this is the worst one, meaning it's the hardest to escape. So all this time in the trailers, we've been looking at Lamentis 1 in the year 2077. This was so out of everyone's expectation that Marvel showed this place in every trailer. trailer, because they knew none of our theories would be correct. Anyway, the Tempad is running low on battery, therefore none of them can teleport somewhere else. Now if Loki gives the Tempad away, Sylvie will have no reasons not to kill him, so Loki's using the Tempad as leverage. And the reason Loki wouldn't kill Sylvie is because she's the only one who knows how to recharge the Tempad. So both of them have their own valid reasons not to kill each other. Sylvie then tries to enchant Loki, but of course she fails to do so because Loki's mind is way too strong to bring under control. Now notice Loki was so confident that he didn't even try to make a move. And I love how the magic fades away like a fuse blowing out. Listen to the sound effects here. Now another detail from this scene, notice how Loki goes out of breath while trying to stop Sylvie from entering his mind.
You're trying to enchant me. It won't work.
Why? Because you're a magician.
He was perfectly still at the beginning, but as he fights against Sylvie's magic, he goes out of breath. Sylvie says she spent years making a plan to attack the TVA, and that's why she knows so much about the Timekeepers. She admits she was a Loki, but now she no longer identifies as one. Instead, she chose an alias Sylvie. Now this name is of course a reference to comics character Sylvie Luston, who became the second version of Asgardian god Enchantress. So I think Marvel may have merged Lady Loki with Enchantress. I understand why they would do that because Lady Loki is just a Loki but female, but mixing her with Enchantress certainly adds more dynamic to the character. Loki then asks her what's the end goal here. What would she do when she defeats the TVA? But she says she'll just simply walk away. And that's what differs between these two Lokis, because our Loki would never do something without having an end goal. Then we learn the Tempad requires a massive power source to recharge, which makes sense because you're literally using it to travel between interdimensional time and space. We get some awesome CGI visuals, but I'll admit, watching it in a very big screen might actually throw you off. But I understand Marvel probably has a tight budget to play with for all the Disney Plus shows. Nonetheless, it's still better than the competition. Loki and Sylvie then come across this woman who I guess is living in her home. Anyway, she tells them that in order to escape from this moon, they have to get to the Ark. And in order to get to the Ark, you gotta get on the train. And to get on the train, you need tickets. And to get tickets, you need to be wealthy. But Loki uses his power and disguises himself as a security guard. Although Sylvie had different plans, she wanted to enchant the guards and cause a fight. So it's quite evident her solution to most problems have to do with fighting some way or the other, but eventually she decides to listen to Loki. They both get on the train and the first thing Loki says is this.
Look, I can't go backwards on a train.
Well, I never sit with my back to a door.
What?
So they both got OCDs about different stuff. Then we get to learn a little bit of the backstory of Sylvie. Unlike Loki, who learned magic from his mother, she barely remembers hers. That's why she gets a bit emotional when Loki talks about his mother. So Loki goes on about a monologue on his mother, and it was so well written. I mean, if you think about it, out of Thor, Captain America and Iron Man, the Holy Trinity, we only ever get to see Thor's mother. And Marvel didn't let that go in vain. They properly used her character in Endgame to develop Thor's character, and now they're doing the same with Loki, especially this dialogue.
And it all seemed impossible. But she told me that one day I'd be able to do it too, because I could do anything.
This was so well acted too. This is the only time she believes in Loki, because she knows he's speaking the truth. Then they talk about the old woman who told them about this train and the Ark. Loki says it's a pity that she chose to die instead of trying to survive. But Sylvie says this woman is in love, even though her husband never really said anything nice to her.
She hated him.
Maybe love is hate.
What was that? Love is hate.
Oh, piss off.
So when Sylvie says something so philosophical, Loki magically summons a pen and a paper because he wants to note it down. Now notice in 0.25x speed, you can see that he actually wrote love is hate. This is my favorite detail from this episode. I'm not sure if this was Tom Hiddleston's handwriting or completely CGI, because if that is, his handwriting is amazing. Now what I love about this detail is that it lasted only one frame. So if this was indeed written through CGI, then hats off to the VFX team who paid attention to every frame of the episode, because if this wasn't written here, nobody would have complained. And that's why Marvel is what they are, because they make sure to add details like this that makes everything feel much more realistic. Loki and Sylvie both admit of not being able to find true love. Now I'm not gonna talk about the sexual tension between these two, because I'm confused about the relationship here, but a viewer commented on my channel that if Loki were to ever fall in love, it would surely be with himself. But still, this feels so weird. I understand they're two different beings, but they're essentially the same. Sylvie then falls asleep but wakes up to a drunk Loki singing an Asgardian song. Now I don't have the translation yet, but I'm pretty sure he was singing about Sylvie, and I've seen a few comments asking how did Loki get drunk so quickly. Well, my theory is because biologically he's not an Asgardian, so maybe frost giants just don't have the knack to drink as much as Asgardians. Now because Loki was so drunk he forgot to cast his magic and appeared in his actual TVA uniform. This attracted attention towards him. Sylvie then says she has been running away from the TVA her entire life.
Oh, I guess it must have started when I spent my entire life running from the omniscient fascists you work for.
She calls them fascist. This was was our first clue as to what the timekeepers really are. The security guards then ask Loki to show his ticket, but because he's drunk, he summons some fireworks instead of a ticket. This immediately alerts the guards and they start to fight. Now in this fight, we see for the first time Loki using his green magic. Honestly, I'm loving the way this show is exploring all the abilities of Loki that we have never got to see before. Loki then gets thrown out of the train and Sylvie jumps as well, because Loki still has the Tempest which she needs. Loki finally reveals the Tempest, but it's totally damaged. Now I could be wrong here, but notice it actually takes a few seconds before smoke starts to come out of it. Loki blames it on the fall and says he took quite the tumble. Now the reason I'm having a hard time believing Loki here is because he was thrown out by this old lady as well. He took quite the tumble over there too. So how come the Tempest didn't get damaged there? So I think this is another trick of Loki. He somehow doesn't want Sylvie to get back to the TVA, not until he gets all his answers. Then they both come up with a different plan. They want to hijack the Ark and make sure it gets off this moon. Now Loki learns about enchantment. Sylvie says she has to make a physical contact and grab a hold of their minds. It can be easy or difficult depending upon how strong the mind is. And to preserve the connection, she simply creates a fantasy from their own memories. So she's in control, but so is the person whose mind she's tinkering with. This is exactly what she did at the beginning of the episode with Hunter C-20. Then comes the biggest reveal from this episode. We learned that this TVA soldier, aka Hunter C-20, was just a regular human being on Earth before she joined the TVA. Sylvie says she had to pull a memory from hundreds of years prior, but C-20 hasn't aged at all, so the timekeepers are really from the future. The TVA was not created by the timekeepers. In fact, they're all variants, but they had their minds wiped, or someone locked them out of their own memories which they can no longer access. So what Loki was told by Mobius is just a bunch of crap. Now my question is, if the TVA are all variants, then who caught and punished the first variant ever? When we find this answer, we'll know definitively who the main villain is. My bet is on Kang the Conqueror. He's a time-traveling villain from the future. The timekeepers may be his way of making sure everything and everyone follows their set path. Because he possesses knowledge of the future, he knows who might go rogue and who won't. So this is probably why he created the timekeepers. And I like this comment on one of my posts that says, this might be the reason why Mobius unknowingly likes jet skis so much. In his previous life, he must have enjoyed riding jet skis, but when the TVA took him, he couldn't access those memories anymore. However, the fondness, the experience are still there. Loki then figures out none of the TVA agents know that. The timekeepers have essentially taken all of these variants as their slaves and use these variants to police other variants. Then they both head towards the Ark, and as they go there, the planet that is about to collide with this moon breaks in half. Therefore, debris start to fall on the ground. Now hats off to Kate Herron, who gave us another one-shot sequence in the MCU after Avengers 1. This was just remarkable to watch. Now while Loki and Sylvie were running around trying to find their way to the Ark, at one point a massive pillar or maybe an entire tower starts to fall, and Loki does this. Now this was weird. I mean, what sort of ability is this? Looks like Loki actually reversed time and sent this pillar back in time. But is that something Loki can do? I'm getting a lot of emails already saying Loki used a time stone here. Well, he did come across a bunch of time stones laying around in the TVA, so he might have taken one or two and concealed it through his magic. But I don't think this theory holds any ground, mostly because if he did anything like this, he would have to use magic inside the TVA to hide the time stone. And we know it's pretty well established that no kind of magic works inside the TVA. So let me know what you lads think about this move. But so far, it does look like Loki used the time stone. Loki and Sylvie then almost make it to the Ark, but massive debris completely destroys the ship, leaving Loki and Sylvie totally heartbroken at the end. Not only them, even the guards fall to their knees knowing there's no chance of them surviving. Now I've got two theories based on this ending. One, Loki somehow has the time stone or at least a space stone which he will use to escape from here. Two, Mobius will come to his rescue, as Mobius now knows the best place to hide is in the apocalypses. And this is where today's episode ends. Now a lot of you may call this episode a filler, but the correct word here is, I think, bridge. This episode is a bridge between episode 1 and 2 and episode 4 and 5, and then of course the finale with episode 6. Tom Hiddleston confirmed himself that the show will pick up its pace from episode 4, and that was only made possible because today's episode laid all the necessary groundwork, so calling this a filler would be an understatement. One final Easter egg from this episode is in the credits. The two guards who stopped Loki and Sylvie before they got on the train have been given credits as PVT Hudson and Corporal Hicks. These are the names of the Marines played by Bill Paxton and Michael Biehn in the movie Aliens, which is another movie that takes place in an abandoned place in space. And that's it. This would be my breakdown of Loki episode 3 at 0.2 Febic speed. I'm so sorry I couldn't find a lot of details in this episode, but I tried my best to explain everything that happened, and still came up with a few hidden details though. It's really hard to watch scenes in slow motion where two people are just talking and nothing happening in the background, but this episode was necessary in order to lay the groundwork for the future, so I promise I'll I'll come up with insane hidden details and Easter eggs next week. Marvel, please help me keep my promise. Now if you like this video, then please give me a thumbs up, grab the subscribe button and turn notifications on. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter to get updates about my videos. Till then, I'll see you lads in the next one.
Another!